to this computer. All right, got it. All right, so we're all set then, correct?
Good to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dave. All right, my name is Jim Bray. I'm the chair of the Environmental Commission in Lower Makefield Township. And I am officially going to bring the November 4th, 2024 meeting to order. And we do have a quorum. So the first item on the agenda is the review and approval of the October 10th, 2024 meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at these?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody? Oh, Dominique, I didn't even see you sneak in here. All right. All right. We made some minor changes. If there's no other changes, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
All right. We need a second.
I can second it.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Good. All right. So the ayes have it, and the meeting minutes for 10/10/2024 are approved. All right. The next item on the agenda is the 2024 Long Range Master Tree Plan. And we're going to be discussing the fall plantings. So just to, give our guests a little information, Lower Makefield Township started in 2016 with a long-range tree plan. And the way we actually got money for these plantings was from the developers who removed various trees from properties they were going to develop. And there's a formula attached to that. So if a developer, for instance, cuts down a 10-inch tree, he or she has to replace it with 4 2.5 to 3-inch caliper trees. And if it's an 18-inch tree, it's 7 has to be replaced. And if it's over 30, it's 10. So this actually went in late 2006 under the Low Impact Development Stormwater Management Ordinance. But there was a little problem with the verbiage, okay, as far as planting trees off-site. So the EAC checked with our attorneys, and we came up with some new appropriate language in 2014. And the way that actually works now is if a developer cannot plant trees on site, and that's our preference, of course, then he has or she has the option of placing a certain amount of money in a tree bank. We have dollarized the cost of a 2.5 to 3-inch replacement tree at roughly about $400 a tree. So for instance, if a developer cuts down a 10-inch tree, he or she is required to replace it with 4. If not on site, then $1,600 goes into the tree bank. So the 2016 plan started in 2016, ended last year. We planted over 1,000 trees and roughly 300 or 400 shrubs without using one single taxpayer dollar. And now, about a month or so ago, the Board of Supervisors approved the 2024 long-range tree plan. And that plan foresees the planting of 1,545 trees, 1,319 shrubs, and 1,500 perennials, again, without using any taxpayer dollars at all. We have already commenced the 2024 plan about a week ago with some plantings at Makefield, at the golf course, and I think at Memorial Park, if I'm correct. Now, Jim Majewski is keeping a good track of where we plant these trees in the individual species. And I'm working with Jim on this project because the last plan, we did have some records, but they weren't exact because there were plantings going on all over the place. So this time we're going to do a much better job of tracking each and every individual planting. So I will be talking with Jim pretty soon as far as that project is concerned. So anyway, we have these plantings that just occurred. And I think it was roughly 160 some trees. And we'll probably be talking with Jim in early next year about selection of future plantings. Now, this is all mapped out, but we're talking about 39 or 40 different areas in the township. So the question will be, well, where do we want to go next? Okay. So basically, that's the update on the 2024 Long Range Master Tree Plan. Now, if any of our guests have any questions about that, I'd be, glad to answer them. Sure.
Oh.
Yeah,
Microphones.
that's right.
Hi. Could you spell your last name?
Sure. Oh, thanks. So yeah, thank you, Charlie. So yes, Steve Merkel, Merkel.
B?
With a V.
B, with a B. Okay. Good. Thank you.
But yes, I was newly elected the president of the MLCA, the Makefield Lakes Community Association, which owns the upper and lower Silver Lakes, over Orchard Way and Lakeview and stuff like that. Anyway, there was a project to replace a sewer line that was going on along the area there, and Aqua PA, who now owns the sewer line, removed some trees that were there so they could do the work. And you had said that this was for that this initiative that you have going on here was for developers who come in and, I suppose, build on a property of land, and then they need to do that. Well, in replacing the pipeline, they removed a few trees, and so I wonder if the ordinance that you're talking about would also apply to that, because they said that they would reimburse us for the trees. And I'm just wondering if it would be like, as you said, I think it was $400 a tree for like 2-inch trees. And if they cut down like 3 to 4, 10 to 18-inch trees, is that what, like, would it apply to this in the same manner? 'Cause it wasn't for developing, but it was for a construction purpose. So
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, Steve. The way this works, though, is these trees can't be planted on private property. They can only be placed on public property throughout the township. But what you're talking about is like semi-private, semi-public. I'm not sure. I mean, it seems a little different. So maybe, after the meeting, maybe you and I, we should discuss this to see if there's some way, in fact, that some of these trees could be planted in the future on this property. However, if they are going to compensate, you, then if you want a device for knowing how to be compensated, this is an excellent one.
that's what I was thinking. This
So-
is precedent in the township for what is appropriate for replacing a tree, even though we're on private property. It's still part of an easement and all kinds of different things that I think it sets a pretty decent. Could you tell me what the metric was again for a 50?
All right, yeah, for a 10-inch tree, the replacement is 4 2.5 to 3-inch caliper trees. For 18 inches, it's 7. I know Alan's going to take a look and make sure I'm right about these, because he knows those numbers a lot better than I do. And so, for instance, if it's 7 replacement trees, you're talking just for that one tree, $2,800. Now, right now, the thing I didn't mention is that we have over $390,000 in our tree bank. And with expected revenues, we have plenty of money to take care of this very ambitious 2024 long-range tree plan. So again, it's 7 after 18, and I think after 30, it's 10. Is that right, Alan?
Yeah, and I have another comment on this. The tree replacement requirement is in chapter 178, which is the saldo ordinance, subdivision and land development. So the question is whether this replacement of the sewer line would be covered by the saldo ordinance 178. So you should look into that.
But even if it's not covered per se, if Aqua or whatever party is involved is willing to pay for these replacement trees, this is a Jim Dandy handy formula that you could certainly use when you're discussing the issue with them.
Great, thank you so much. I'm writing an email to them about it. We just met as a board on Tuesday. So that's excellent information. Thanks so much.
All right, well, Steve, thank you again for coming and thank you for your question.
Steve, may I ask you a question? How many trees were cut down? Do you know?
I think that it was 4. I
Oh,
we
okay.
cut down 4.
Mhm.
Yes. We didn't take measurements beforehand. We didn't know that it was going to happen. It all happened very quickly.
Mhm.
But yes, I think there were 4 ash trees along the
Oh, ash trees.
along the Orchard Way side of the lake.
Right.
That's where they had taken them down. 'Cause that's what yes.
Yeah,
Let
well,
us know
Yeah,
how
the-
you do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll do. Well, Derek Fuller,
Fuller?
he's CC'd on all my correspondence with Aqua, and he has been since this all started. So he's aware. So you can also I will update you, but he's also aware.
Right.
it's great. Again, excellent idea. Planting trees is what we do. And we actually have a motto that we are trying to turn Lower Makefield Township into a giant arboretum. And I think it's certainly a commendable goal.
Very good. Yes, I think that the NLC memberships would encourage that. There's a lot of people who appreciate that.
All right, thanks again for coming, Steve. All right, the next item on the agenda is recycling. And Alan, Soumya, Kevin, and Jeanne are going to be talking about that. Alan is, I think we'll start talking about our very successful event that was just held. Alan, the floor is all yours.
All right. I thought the October 26th recycling event went very well. Things seemed to run smoothly and we had enough people, enough volunteers. And I assume everybody else agrees. Was there any problem people notice? It was okay? Good. Because we've got another one coming up January 11th, and it'll be, the same deal. I'll try to get the same people coming back to help out. And is there anything else we need to do differently? It seems like it's.
No, I think we had adequate people there this time. The problem is in the first 45 minutes, if we had 30 people, it wouldn't have been enough. Because people kept coming early, I think. And as you know, my role in this is I am the expert tire, which is a unique skill that I've developed to tie these bags quickly and securely. And I was actually, the reason I have that job is generally I can sit down for a little while on the job, but I wasn't able to sit down at all this time. So anyway, but that was my little sad story. But on an overall basis, I think it was fantastic. We actually collected 116 55-gallon bags of styrofoam that would have gone in a landfill. So we tend to be victims of our own success. And we're looking forward to the January 11th event as well.
Weren't we talking about it, maybe having a different traffic flow, kind of requiring people to go around the parking lot and come back
Yeah,
around?
the woman who we supply with the cat not baskets,
Shelters.
yeah. She suggested that to make it more orderly, that the cars go in one direction, go around the circle, and all come out the same way. And that probably makes sense because when we used to have our major recycling events for, things with plugs, we actually did that, and it just makes for a little smoother flow instead of cars coming in and out in the same direction. So I think we might give that a try the next time.
I think that's a good idea. We just need more signs or a barricade or something.
Right. And get it from the police. And,
Alan,
yeah,
my problem with, I mean, I love the styrofoam, but when we're now with this great tire guy here, he's tying them really tight and they have to cut them off.
yep.
And then these huge plastic bags will go in the landfill. So I think that's a problem.
Well, this might be a little domestic dispute that I will actually discuss with my wife later. However, I tend to be flexible. So if there's another way of tying these things to make them, reusable again, I would certainly fall in line with that. It also makes for domestic happiness. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
But what about ties?
Twisters?
Twisters?
well, we'll work something out.
Okay.
What about the plastic bags though?
Hmm?
What about the plastic bags?
Yeah.
Can they use something else?
Paper.
Maybe- Well,
Well,
I don't know. This is
they
something
don't
we
have-
could certainly do.
if they don't have to cut them up, then I can tell them to save them and come back there a
Maybe
week
use
or
them.
two later and pick them up.
Okay.
But,
Reuse them.
okay. Well,
All right, well, we
talk
can,
about it.
we can certainly discuss that, but I guess it makes sense, so. All right, the next item,
Jim,
oh,
I just wanna-
sorry. Oh,
the,
Kevin, I didn't
there's
see
one,
it.
one other thing I learned this week is that the battery partner we've been working with does not accept batteries anymore. So I'm looking into alternatives. I don't have anything to report yet definitively, but I'm not worried. I just need to work out the details.
All right, and I think, didn't we collect like 150 pounds of batteries?
It was 50 pounds of cork and 100 pounds of batteries.
Wow, wow.
Why,
Kevin,
why did she, not mom, his mom, so why?
Yeah, it was their reasoning was that because a lot of people are moving towards rechargeables, they're not accepting the batteries at all anymore. But there are some retail stores that accept them, so I'm looking into what the requirements are, so we can be prepared. In the meantime, they're in my car still, so.
all right, well,
How many
Kevin,
medicine bottles did we get?
Soumya, you remember how many medicine bottles that we actually ended up?
This time around, we got about 375 pill bottles.
And will you just talk briefly where those bottles go?
Yeah, so what we do is we clean them and send them off to an organization called Matthews 25 Ministries, which send them ahead to Latin American countries to be used as fresh medical supplies.
All right, thank you, Soumya. All right, the next item on the agenda is the single trash hauler analysis. Now, this project has a long checkered negative history, shall I say, going back about 12 years or so, and I'm not going to get into that. But I guess it was earlier this year, John Lewis asked us, maybe not even earlier, mid-year, John Lewis asked us, who is the BOS chairman, to take a look at this again, because I think, according to him, the climate is a lot different now than it was back then. But, and again, I'm not going to get into what happened back then, but even back then, and I guess it was around 2012, over 50% of the municipalities in Lower Makefield Township use a single hauler. And I think the environmental benefits are incredibly obvious. Instead of 3 or 4 different companies going up and down the same street using gas and ruining our roads, you only end up with one carrier doing that. So anyway, we have just taken another look at that, and Alan has spent a great deal of time updating and basically coming up with a new report that we're going to be handing off to the Board of Supervisors very shortly. In the meantime, it's been sent out to all our members, and hopefully they've all had a chance to take a look at it. And we're ready, willing, and able to take any suggestions from our people who have read this. If not, what we will be doing shortly, probably in a couple of weeks, is sending it to the Board of Supervisors for their scrutiny. And it looks now that we will probably be having a formal presentation at the second meeting in December. That's not firmly in concrete, because when I talked to John recently, he said it looks good, but he wants to, make sure if there's not any other real important time-consuming items on the agenda as well. So, I mean, has everybody had a chance to take a look at this? And if they have, do we have any comments?
Just details. What is the difference between the yard waste and the leaf waste as far as collection is concerned? Because you say it's not allowed to put yard waste in the regular trash cans, but it's not being collected by the trash haulers.
Yard waste and leaf waste is pretty much the same thing. And neither one of them, per our, I think there's a state law and per our own ordinance, they're not supposed to go in the trash, but they do. So, because people don't have they don't have a way to get rid of it other than take it to the recycling yard by the township building. So that's one of the advantages of going to a single hauler is they'll have a specific day to pick up yard waste, including leaves, each week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think the important thing to note about that is that a lot of these haulers are really not complying with the state law, but there's nobody slapping their hands about it either. But Alan is 100% correct. When we deal with a single trash hauler, we make the rules and we make sure that they comply with all state ordinances. Any other comments?
Well, just one other thing. You seem to say that McCullough is not going to be in the bid.
It's up to them. They're just the smallest company. These other companies are either national or regional, large regional companies. McCullough is in our area, but they're not just our township. There are like 5 other townships and boroughs. Right. So, they could maybe gear up and make a bid. Who knows? I haven't talked to them. And did people look at table 1? I just want to make sure I've got the annual cost right for the collection, because that'll be a big factor when the supervisors look at this. So if anybody notices they have a different cost than what I have in the table here, send me an email. Let me know, because I'd like this to be accurate.
All right. And that was the small part I actually played in this project, is checking with these various haulers. The problem is sometimes if you call up and you say, hey, I'm looking at my bills are really high, you're charging me too much money, I'm going to go elsewhere. It's going to be pretty casual. Sometimes they might say, okay, we're going to take $20 off your bill, but with the single trash hauler, that stuff's out the window. We have one price and that's it. And I think also what we were recommending is that this is part of our tax bill. Wasn't that the way we were heading, Alan?
Yeah, that would be the simplest way for the township to collect the money from the residents, is just include it as part of your property tax rather than send you a bill every month or whatever. That would be a lot more complicated. And you get payment a lot. People comply a lot better if it's part of their tax bill, because I talked to Yardley Borough and they do send out individual bills to the residents and they do have trouble collecting. So it'd be easier for the township, I think, if it was part of the property tax.
All right. If there's no other questions, then I guess we need a motion to approve this draft. And then you and I will be discussing it further, Alan, and then decide when John wants this given to the supervisors for their scrutiny. So I will entertain a motion to approve the single trash hauler analysis. Is somebody willing to make that motion? All right, and we need a second.
I can second it.
All right, and any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. And again, Alan, I want to thank you personally. You spent a lot of time on this, and I think this is the kind of project that's really going to benefit the citizens of Lower Makefield Township, not only financially, but from an environmental viewpoint as well. Next item on the agenda is Birdtown. We are currently working with the administration to place Birdtown on the LMT webpage and on Facebook. And I see Kelly smiling. Kelly Frayne is working with my wife, Jeanne, who is the chair of Birdtown in Lower Makefield Township, to facilitate putting this on the web and maybe on Facebook as well. Alan and myself and the other members of the EAC, we're also going to discuss this a little further as to what we think is the best way of doing this, by having maybe it part of the EAC web or a separate entity. We don't know yet. I mean, there's pros and cons for each, but we're going to thoroughly scrutinize the EAC webpage, which does need some updating. And then when we have some kind of a decision, I think we're probably going to be talking with the township manager, because Dave will ultimately be the one making the decision as to how to proceed. But I also want to thank Kelly for spending her time, helping us with this project. Thank you, Kelly. And Dominique, of course, yes. All right. Is there anybody else who helped that I overlooked, maybe? Okay. All right. Is there anything else, Jeanne, you wanted to talk about? All right. Proposed single-use plastics ban. This is a project near and dear to all of us. And this will be discussed with the Board of Supervisors after the single trash hauler presentation, which again will probably be at the end of December. We feel strongly on the EAC that this is a time that has come. My rough analysis indicates that about 40% of the people in the United States right now are covered by some form of a single use plastic bags ban. And Jersey, for instance, the whole state, Delaware, New York, and selected large states throughout the United States, California, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to be looking into this. The board asked us to defer this conversation, though, until we take care of the single trash hauler, because this is a rather large project in itself. But the single-use plastic bags that's not going away. And Dominique is one of the ones who is going to be spearheading this project. Any other comments on the single use?
More bad news about plastics, that's all. So no, there will be plenty of material to discuss when we start.
Okay, sounds good. All right,
I'd like to help with that too.
next item is an update on land use plans. It says no activity, Alan. So you have updates on anything else that's going on?
Not really. Wright Farm is going to be putting in a revised plan real soon, but who knows when that'll come. And I don't know if this is kind of related to land use, but everybody knows the open space referendum. Oh, we got it laid down here. Never mind. Go on to the next topic.
Okay. Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
All right, what Alan is talking about is unfortunately the Wright Farm, a good portion of that is going to be open to development pretty soon. And what we're trying to do in the EAC is to minimize the impact of that development, especially when you're talking about where the houses are going to be placed. We're always advocates of significant extra buffering so that when you're on our major roads, for instance, you're not looking at the back of a bunch of houses. So in the past, the developers have listened to us, and hopefully in the future, especially with this large project, they will be listening to us as well. But thanks for that update, Alan. The next item is the EAC Lecture Series. And we are working right now with a gentleman named Michael Waldbacher, who in the past has given lectures here. I guess it was early this year or late last year. He gave a wonderful lecture on the migration of butterflies, especially monarchs. And it was very well received and very, very interesting. And what we thought about, and we're checking with Michael to see if he's available right now. He gives a lecture around Valentine's Day on bird and insect propagation, if you will, which is kind of pertinent to the holiday, I suppose. But anyway, we're going to be looking into that as well, too, because I saw a little about, what the lecture was about, and it's pretty fascinating. So anyway, but we will keep everybody informed as to the status of that lecture. Tree City, USA. Okay. Now, we just had last Saturday our first ever Arbor Day celebration. And there's a little story behind that, which is kind of interesting because our new township, our manager, Dave Kratzer, hasn't been here a long time. And when he first came, him and I had a discussion. And he said, Jim, with all the tree plantings that Lower Makefield Township is doing, how come you never belong to Tree City, USA? And I started thinking, and there was no real good reason why, except the fact that we were so busy planting trees that the question of recognition was just kind of thrown aside. Well, recognition is really, really important too. I mean, now you see with the Birdtown, the signs coming into the township. And when you have these signs and you sign up to a program like this, it's a clear message to all the residents in the town that the administration and the staff really care about this town. They really care about planting trees, and they really care about the environment. So right now, our LMT planner, Dan McClune, has been charged with the responsibility to fill out the Tree City application. And there's 4 steps involved in that application. The first 3 we've already taken care of. And that has to do with, who takes care of trees, annual budget, and that sort of thing. And the last requirement is to become an Arbor Day town. So we just took care of that requirement last Saturday. And right now, Dan is compiling, the application. And I'm going to be, actually, I just forwarded him some photos from the events, and we're going to send to him, I believe he already has it, the invitation for the event, the program, and some written material about the event. It's kind of a strange process, though, because you have to have an Arbor Day celebration before you're really a bona fide member of Arbor Day. But those are the rules. So what actually happens is we do all this submittal, and then sometime next year in February or March, we will hear from probably the state forester or the Arbor Day Foundation that our application has been accepted. However, this is not being done in a void. I know the state forester for Berks and Bucks County. His name is Harris Nowatarski, and I'm going to be meeting with him on December 10th to discuss some heritage tree measurements in Lower Makefield Township. And he said as soon as the information goes into the portal for the application, he is privy to it, and he's going to take a look at it as well as our state coordinator. And if there's any issues at all, and he said basically most of the time there really isn't, but if there are, it's like minor stuff that he will notify us right away and we'll take care of it. So I feel very, very confident that next February or March, Lower Makefield Township will officially become part of the Arbor Day Foundation. And we're going to have, I think, an annual tree planting. Now, for the first tree planting, and you might take a look at the beautiful, it's not beautiful red maple right now because it lost all its leaves. However, as you leave the building on your right, there's a newly planted red maple, and it's a cultivar called Red Sunset that I guarantee is more red than a cardinal. So I think as this tree matures, it's going to be a real showpiece, for the admin building. And for the first year, the tree is dedicated to all Lower Makefield Township employees, staff, all the boards and commissions whose through hard work and dedication have made the quality of life in Lower Makefield Township what it is. So I thought that was very, very appropriate the first year. And what we're thinking about in years to come is honoring a specific group each year, and we'll be planting a tree each year. For instance, maybe the Pennsbury school system has a class that has done some really wonderful things about some environmental concerns or what have you. We will be honoring that group in the years to come, okay? And hopefully this will go on for forever. I guess forever is a long time, but anyway, perpetually, okay? So that's the story about Arbor Day and Tree City. I also want to thank again all the people who took time, like Kelly, for instance, on their Saturday morning to come and honor the town for this unique achievement. So any other questions about Tree City or Arbor Day? All right, the next item on the agenda is something near and dear to the Environmental Council, and especially, Alan has done a lot of work with respect to open space. So Alan, would you like to discuss the results of the recent referendum?
Yeah, some people might already know, but yes, it passed pretty easily. It got almost 70% of the vote. There were a little over 15,000 yes votes and 6,800 no votes. So it passed by over 2-1. So that's a good thing. And now I'm thinking, should we do anything? And the only thing I could think of is we sent the supervisors a letter in last April with 6 possible properties that could be obtained for open space. And I could just resend them the letter just to remind them about this, because I don't know if they still remember. That was almost 8 months ago. So now that they have authorization to spend this money, maybe they'll be a little more receptive.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea, Alan. And there's certainly more properties that we can recommend than the 6 that we were just talking about. But these 6 seem to be pretty obvious. We have a very, very comprehensive list of open space properties. Back in 2009 and 10, the EAC, we actually reviewed 283 properties over the course of a year. And the idea back then was to take a look at any property left in the township that could be developed in any way or fashion. So myself and a gentleman named Jeff Gall, and Jeff is a principal in Princeton Hydro, an environmental engineering firm. We took a year and we reviewed 283 properties. Jim Majewski, who is now the Community Development Coordinator, was on the committee as well. And he took a look at each of the properties we were looking at to see if there were various impediments on those properties or not. And another gentleman named Joe Sundin, who's very good with the computer, is he took our gibberish that Jeff and I gave him, and he made it into some kind of cohesive form. So now this is, you're talking about 13 or 14 years ago. However, a lot of these properties are still, undeveloped, and we can still, source other really, really good possible properties from that list. And that's really what we intend to do. The other thing is a clarification. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we're not necessarily going to spend $15 million, although we would love to do it. But this referendum gives the town the capacity to borrow up to $15 million when and if we find appropriate properties that lend themselves to, either being conserved or purchased outright. So anyway.
I think we should put something in the next newsletter. That's the next item on the agenda. Because so many people at the polls were confused about it and voted against it because they didn't understand the referendum. And I think we need to explain it in more detail. Because I think this time, we're doing it even better than it was passed in the 1970s, where all you could do was buy the property. You couldn't remediate any contamination or renovate any of the buildings or do any environmental protection or correction of the site. So I think we need to explain that in a clearer language than was in the resolution itself.
Yeah. Yes, Kelly. You have to go to the microphone, please.
Is it on? Hello? Okay.
As soon as you see the green.
Yeah. I would also encourage anybody to visit the Lower Makefield Township Facebook page. We had posted about the referendum passing and said basically in very broad terms, like what you had mentioned or what you had suggested, that we have the capacity to borrow up to, doesn't say that we will, but we can. And also for recreational use for the betterment of the community. So that verbiage is in there as well, just for everybody's general knowledge. There's post on the Facebook page if anybody wanted to refer to that.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think part of the, I don't want to say problem, but maybe it was the problem, is that when you read the verbiage attached to the referendum, it was a little confusing. But the reason it was confusing is that they were trying to explain thoroughly exactly what the money was going to be used for. Now, in the past, you really couldn't be using money for any remediation, if you will. But let's say, for instance, we buy a piece of property, for the program, and maybe there's an abandoned well on that property. So that's going to take some money to remediate. And under the wording of this referendum, we will be able to do something like this. But I think also it prohibits the building of any structures. Is that correct, Alan?
Yeah, of sports fields, things like that. It would stop. And hopefully they don't buy any property that has buildings on it, because that's always problematic. Ends up costing a lot more.
Yes, I think Alan brings up a good point. My personal feeling is that this township does 99% of what it does well, but we don't have a stellar track record on owning properties and doing something, with those properties. So my personal feeling is that we're better off never purchasing any open space with a building on it, unless, for instance, that building is set aside as a separate area. So, all right, the next item on the agenda is the EAC and township newsletters. And Paul, I mean, you already talked about, a proposed item for the newsletter. Does anybody else have anything that they would?
Well, I see 5 things potentially for the next issue. Include some photos from the Arbor Day celebration. And we also, I need to get a photograph from the Styrofoam Recycling Day, which was very successful, 116 bags, 55-gallon bags. I think we need to have something on the single trash hauler. I think that would be appropriate. And also upcoming, the township is sponsoring Electronics Recycling Day. And I need more specific information on the date, time, and location on that.
Yeah, I think that last item you discussed, I think it was Yardley Borough and Lower Makefield, and I think they received some kind of a grant in order to be able to do
Yeah.
this.
State grant.
Right. And this is good because we used to do this. The EAC sponsored it on an annual basis. But over the years, what's actually happened is, I guess, most of this stuff was shipped to foreign countries and they no longer want the stuff. So there's basically no market for that anymore. So that's why I think an outing like this is really, really important. And we have a couple of things that we will be dropping off as well. I don't know. Does anybody know about the TVs though, as far as that's concerned? Paul, do you know?
No, I just need to know the date, time, and location.
Yeah, they usually accept fees, but they accept the TVs, but there's usually a fee associated with it.
Okay.
I don't know
Yeah.
all the details.
There's a flyer
All right.
for this event and it tells you how much. It's either 20 or 30 bucks for TVs.
Yeah. And,
But what's the date? And
Do
it's
you
over
have-
by the swimming pool?
Yeah. Paul, I'll send you the flyer that the township put together on this event. And that
Okay.
has all the information on it. And I'll also send you a photo from that last recycling event that we had on October 26th, the one I'm using in the flyer for the next event.
Okay.
I'll send you both those things.
all right, one other item. As far as TVs are concerned, I just remembered that Restore, which is located in Langhorne in one of the shopping centers, will actually take your old TV and they will not charge you for it. So this is kind of neat. I guess about a year ago, we had an old TV that died, and I'm talking old. It took almost 2 of us to carry it into the car. And they took it, no questions asked. So that's another outlet for these old TVs as well.
That's the Habitat for Humanity
Yeah.
Restore.
Right, exactly. It's a great organization. All right, I guess the next item is open discussion. Our guests are certainly willing to say anything that comes to mind, or
Mhm.
anybody on the council.
I haven't set a date. That's a good question. I think I was planning like right after Thanksgiving, the first week of December. At least that's my target.
All right, the question was, when is the next newsletter going to be coming out? Okay. Any other questions or comments?
About the newsletter, does it go to the LMT webpage or?
We have a mailing list of people that have attended our lectures and have come to these meetings, and they've requested to be on our mailing list. But I don't know if we've put it up on the website, as an archive type of thing. That would be great. Yeah.
And the township's in the process of revising the stormwater management ordinances. They already did part 1 and now they're doing part 2. And there's going to be a meeting in the next few weeks on that. And if anybody's interested in going, I'll let you know the details about it. And if anybody's interested in having a draft of the proposed ordinance changes, I can send you that. It's, I think, 56 pages, but the changes are, that's the whole ordinance. So the changes are much smaller than 56 pages. But
And those are compliant with MS4?
Yeah, they'll be part of MS4 to get us there. What they're doing, the second phase is we have two stormwater ordinances right now, the Neshaminy Creek and the Delaware River South. And they're going to combine those into one ordinance because they essentially say the same thing. And then they're going to take anything in our Saldo ordinance that talks about stormwater and put it in this new separate ordinance, chapter. And it should be easier to understand and comply with all that. That's the main stuff.
Alan, I'd like to know more about that. So if you could send that to me.
Yeah,
Okay,
could you
yeah.
send me that too?
All right.
I believe we were using an outside agency to write up this ordinance. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's HRC, their initials. It's a consultant, and they've done all this work, and they've met with the township personnel on it, and now they want to meet with some of the advisory boards about it before they present it to the public at a supervisor meeting.
All
So,
right,
yeah,
will this totally negate the LID, our low impact development ordinance, or just supplement it?
No, it'll supplement it. It'll incorporate all that stuff and hopefully add some new things. They've already added some great things in phase 1 to our stormwater ordinance, which I won't go into, but it's definitely a lot stronger than it was. And I haven't looked at this yet. I just got it today. So hopefully they'll continue that.
All right, well, that's certainly good news. We put into effect our low impact development stormwater management in December of 2006. And at the time, it was really, really cutting edge. And that's actually the ordinance that brought into play the tree replacement ratios and other really interesting things like that. But the two interesting things about that ordinance that were very, very different from what had happened in the past is there's two main provisions. The first one is that the rain that falls on your property stays on your property. And the second is to treat water as a tremendous asset and not a nuisance. We took about 56 pages to say that at the time. But anyway, as Alan said, our stormwater management ordinances really require updating because if you all remember that tragic incident of a year or two ago in Upper Makefield Township, quite frankly, the infrastructure in many, many of these areas right now is not in keeping with the fact that our climate is changing. So we have to really get on board. And this is going to be an expensive process, I think, for the municipalities to undertake, but it's essential that it be done. Of course, Stephen Merkel would like a few more comments.
Yes, thanks.
Can you turn your mic on? I don't.
Thank you. Yes. So one of the reasons that I showed up today is because as becoming president of the MLCA, I wanted to start to kind of just work with some community partners and get some just insights on how to best maintain the lakes and the properties that are around the MLCA. And in doing so, the first person who I reached out to was someone named Karen Ogden, who works for the Bucks County Conservation District. And she kind of did a session for us at one of the monthly meetings that we had. And in it, she talked about different things that we could do to kind of create a riparian zone around the lakes so that, just to stabilize the banks and just to make sure that it is healthy in some sort of way for stabilization. But we also talked about other things like water filtration and things like that. The lakes do receive stormwater, right? Like I think that the lakes have stormwater moving through it. And she did mention the MS4 as like a thing that exists. I didn't know about it beforehand. But one of the things that I was interested in doing as part of the MLCA is trying to help educate people in our neighborhood about just the watershed and what happens there and just the health and quality of the water. And I noticed that the MS4 has like some education requirements. And I was wondering if there was anything that we could do as an organization to help support education in, the community, maybe the LMT at large, in order to just, to contribute to that plan. And so I just wasn't sure if that would be something that would be of interest to people. And like, if I were to do it, like I could do it informally just as the MLCA and no one would know about it. But if I am going to put the effort into doing that and having like, I was thinking that maybe it'd be nice to have like twice a year, have educational sessions for the neighborhood. And just if there's anything we could do to help with like supporting that and whatever you're doing here. So I don't know if you have any guidance on that. I suppose I'm asking for guidance, and if there's anything that I would do that would be helpful from that perspective. So any comments or questions?
Yeah, I'd love to work with you on that.
Oh, okay, great.
I think sometime in the past, the Yardley Borough EAC was involved in some type of research project on that. And part of our mission as an environmental advisory council is to educate the public on these type of issues, through the newsletter, through the website, through seminars, through our lecture series. I mean, I think that's very crucial because as we all know, the climate is changing and we have to be ready to try to remediate and do the best we can with what's going on, but we have to educate the public by all means we can.
Okay, great.
Zoom, whatever it is it takes, to get the information out there.
Right. I wasn't sure if like, would it be best if I submitted an application to book time at like, if it were to be part of like the MS4, would it need to be somewhere like we book time at the building and then we have a session and we promote it among like the MLCA membership that you can come and learn about how to, especially for those people whose properties are like on the lake, because a lot of it's private home ownership up to the lake. And so, just in order for it to potentially help your MS4, like, would it have to be like done here versus me just being like, I have a Teams account, I can schedule a meeting for, under an hour for free and you can join. I don't know if that like kind of would actually have the impact to show that there is something going on education wise. So
yeah. In the past, Steve, we've actually had a couple of lectures, and I'm going back a couple of years. One of them was given by one of the gentlemen and a woman who worked for Princeton Hydro, and it was basically on stormwater management. And it was pretty well attended because it's kind of an interesting topic anymore, as you well know. Also, the management in Lower Makefield Township has used several things that we have done over the years as part of their MS4 application. And as Paul said, a lot of that has to do with education and also with some of the ordinances that, have been promulgated over the years. But what a suggestion might be that you contact some of these engineering firms and maybe see if one of them would be willing to come and, speak to your group. And they would, I'm talking for the management, they would probably let you use, a room like this or basically something over the community center to assemble a group. I think that would be really be a good idea because it's an interesting, I know a little about, the situation over at Makefield Lakes. About 15 years ago, I worked with a woman at the time because they were looking to put in some plantings all along the lake. And I'm also a credentialed master gardener, so I gave them a whole, list of plants that I would think would be appropriate. And that's basically a buffering technique. And that's, one of the things that, are going to happen, I think, over there, because if I remember correctly, there's a lot of homes that basically have grass right down to the lake.
that's correct.
And that can cause some environmental issues. So,
Right. That's why I had reached out to Karen Ogden at the Conservation District for kind of some guidance there. I did not know that you were a master gardener, but that's wonderful. I actually just met with someone named, or spoke with someone named Jeanne Neal, who is also a master gardener, but she does something up at Doylestown Community Park. And I was seeing if she could help with advising on what type of plants would be good for some of the areas around our lake. So if you have any guidance or have time to, stop down and kind of point out what might be good for some of the area because the lake's property has some unique aspects to it because the dam is there. And so there's also like a state ordinance that you can't plant trees or like deep wooded roots on a dam. So we would need to have something that's currently it's a bunch of poison ivy, and it would be nice to have something besides poison ivy there that's native and things like that. So this woman, Jeanne Neal, said that she's too busy and she didn't have time to help, but she told me to get in touch with someone named, I think Kathleen Connolly, who is a master watershed person in our area. And so I'm going to reach out to her to see if she can help with, plant selection that we could put on the property. And the second thing was that when I was speaking with Karen and Jane, she also said that she pointed out a lot of funding potential things to help fund and get plants like saplings or something like that for the area. But it seems as though Bowman's Hill has some things where you can get, there's just different, Aqua has Aqua who just redid they offer some sort of planting, but we're not a 501c3. So we don't actually apply. We don't as the MLCA, we don't qualify for any of those grants. And so another question that I had was is there any precedent for the township helping us to apply for those things, to put it onto that property to help make the watershed a little bit better? So these are a lot of questions that I have.
Jim is also a naturalist at Bowman's.
Oh,
So he's
okay.
well-rounded.
Okay.
So he can help you.
Great. Well, that's why I
Well,
came by, so
when
I
you,
can learn from what we can do and what options are available to us, and just try to again create partnerships as an MLCAs for what we can do for that property to keep it open, to keep it well maintained, and to help it actually, just the quality of the water, whatever we can do to really make the area.
well, I'm very glad you mentioned Kathleen's name. Kathleen Connolly and I were in the same initial class when we became master gardeners quite a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
And Kathleen Connolly actually ran the program for quite a few years. I know her very, very well.
Okay.
And then, of course, she switched over to the Master Watershed program, and I believe she's the coordinator now. So she would be, I think, an excellent person to get in contact with. She's very knowledgeable, and she'll know about grant monies and a lot of things like that. She should be able to help you quite a bit.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I will. That was one of my next things. I wanted to show up at this and just keep moving forward. But thank you. That's great.
You can even tell her that you were referred by Jim Bray, because I still have a very good relationship with her.
Okay, great. Yes, I will. It's always nice to drop names because
Right.
it helps to get a
Yeah,
response.
I have a couple of suggestions. First is I'm a master watershed steward with Kathleen. So we are always organizing volunteer plantings for buffers. So this would be a perfect project with Kathleen can promote, and you would get volunteers to do the planting. Basically, from nuts to bolts, this can be handled by the volunteer group at the Master Watershed Steward, Penn State. The other thing is that a few years back, we had organized as part of our lecture series, residents to come up and talk about native plants and how they went about it in their own gardens. So that makes it more personal rather than an expert giving advice. So I was going to suggest whether, if you're interested in, the EAC can sponsor a lecture event. If you want to speak about your specific thing as backyard buffer intervention, It's also of interest to one of the Board of Supervisors as to how to promote it. And I've also been trying to look at how to interest private landowners to get into this, rather than, all the tree planting that we've been talking about is on public property and where the township has access to actually implement things. So this would, if you know of a bunch of people who are interested, like on the property and your neighbors and things like that, if that could be a discussion, and we could promote it and get other people also. And if we have a panel of 2 or 3 to discuss about what is backyard buffers, like basically the presentation that you're talking about, that coming from the community somehow resonates more with people than an expert advice.
Okay, yeah.
So that's something, if you're interested, and if the council is open, we could organize an event like that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I think that there are some very, the reason that I started all of this is because there are motivated people in the neighborhood who have experience. They work in the field, and they want to see, a gentler approach to maintaining the property rather than just cutting everything back. And the push for native plants has been brought up to me many times by different people in the area. Purifying the water that falls and comes out of their drain spouts is also of interest to some other people. So I'm sure that, to your point, I was thinking less about an expert for some, but I guess I was thinking of doing it twice a year. So I would look for different venues, but personal interest and people who do things on their private property, I think is very important, because I think that's what affects most of our quality. Because
people can relate to that as
Right.
this person did it, so maybe I can also think about it.
Right,
that
right.
way.
Well, thank you very much. I will bring all that back to the board. Again, I'm just here as a representative of the board. I will ask them for permission before I do anything. But I just wanted to make sure that we're moving in the right direction to help maintain those properties in the lake. So thanks so much. Appreciate all of your insights, and I will follow up with each of you. And definitely I'll follow up with Kathleen, because it sounds like she would be a great person for volunteer and knowledge and grant funding for the area. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you for coming out, all of you for coming out today and expressing, some interest in what we're doing. And I think that's about it now, unless anybody else has anything they would like to add. We will officially end the meeting at 7:13. And again, thank all of you for coming out today.
Bye.
Just before leaving.